Would like the great grandfather started.
All righty. Welcome, everybody. Good to see everybody here today. I'm going to call the Moab City Council meeting to order on Tuesday, April 28th, 2026 at 6:02 p.m. And let's see. Miles, will you lead us in this pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. First up, public comments. I have two folks that have filled out the form. If you're interested in speaking tonight, if you could fill out one of these forms and get it to Michael. We'll start with you, Bill.
Good evening, everybody. Cool. So my name is Bill Agee, and I live on Mill Creek Drive. I feel like I have to start with that part. And over the past year, I've spoken to many of you regarding OHV related noise. And again, I want to thank you for your time and attention to this matter. I'm here this evening to kind of hear what the City Council, the mayor, and the Moab administrators are proposing with respect to speed limits on certain routes in the city of Moab. It's also my understanding that the city of Moab is considering repealing ordinance 2020-15. And I kind of understand why you're considering it. But I think this ordinance just may need to be updated for point of clarification. So for example, the use of OHV should be for street legal ATVs, but the intent is well researched and well founded in Utah State Code. I think, in fact, it does comport with the motor vehicle codes of Utah. Specifically, if you look at just the Utah Code 41-6A 601, and I'll try to be brief in the future when I refer these numbers, then it would appear that Section 2 of this ordinance prevents Moab from setting speed limits based on vehicle type. But 601 is subject to other codes. In particular, again, 41-6A 602 and 603. These state codes allow for municipalities, specific municipalities, to determine and set reasonable and safe speed limits for each vehicle on highway, and that is defined as a public road or section of highways under its jurisdiction. So under Code 602, for example, municipalities may establish different speed limits on highway, again, public road, for section of the highway based on time of day, highway construction, vehicle type, and weather conditions. So it's my opinion, therefore, this gives municipalities the latitude to establish speed limits by time of day and vehicle type. And since speed limits are properly posted in Moab, per 602 subsection 5 or section 5, they are enforceable. You've posted them. That means they are enforceable. Removal of those signs that makes 15 miles an hour posting for OHVs, if you remove them, then they become unenforceable. So I don't think that's what you want to undo. A lot of effort's been put into posting those signs. They just need to be enforced. So now I think reducing overall speed on specific tourist and commercial corridors is prudent for safety and noise. Go ahead. I think 25 or 20 miles an hour is a good idea in certain areas. But avoiding the opportunity to protect residents from street legal ATVs that are not engineered to travel on residential roads is risky. Somebody's going to get injured. So reducing speeds for these types of vehicles is a safety concern. And because speed equals noise, it also will reduce noise, which is really the denominator in this conversation. So now that I know there's concern that City of Moab will be sued for enforcing the existing city ordinances for street legal ATVs. Based on the above argument, I think that Moab would survive any legal challenge. And I think their current opinion is a bit too conservative. And given the attention this has drawn, I think Moab actually has a higher, greater liability exposure for not enforcing them in the event somebody's injured. So anyway, the residents of Moab think we're just worth the risk of litigation. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Kaylin. It's nice to see you.
Good to see you all.
I'm Kaylin Jones, 900 Cane Creek Boulevard, Moab. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here to speak in strong support of item 5.1, adoption of ordinance 2026-09, establishing Moab's Community Clean Energy Program. This is an exciting moment for our city. For years, Moab has set clear aspirations around sustainability, energy conservation, and climate leadership. Tonight is about turning long-standing goals into measurable action. It shows that our plans are not just words on paper, they are a roadmap we are willing to follow. That matters because across the country, many cities have adopted ambitious climate targets, but far fewer have been able to put real implementation tools into practice. Utah Renewable Communities is significant because it creates a practical pathway to cleaner electricity through the existing utility system. It is not just another pledge, it is a mechanism that can deliver results. Just as importantly, this approach is designed with affordability in mind. The program structure spreads costs over time and across a broad base, helping keep impacts manageable for typical ratepayers. And the inclusion of provisions for low-income households through protections, exemptions, and targeted support help ensure that the transition to clean energy doesn't leave anyone behind. That balance is critical. Climate action must be durable, and durability depends on it being economically workable for the whole community. For Moab, cleaner electricity also helps unlock progress in many other parts of the sustainability plan. As our community electrifies transportation, improves building efficiency, installs heat pumps, and reduces fossil fuel use, these gains become even more meaningful when the grid itself is cleaner. Item 5.1 is a force multiplier. It makes future investments work even better. And of course, this comes in the broader context of climate change. We live in a landscape defined by beauty, but also by vulnerability. Heat, drought, wildfire risk, drought stress, and their impacts to our economy and homes. Communities our size do not solve climate change alone, but leadership is cumulative. When Moab acts, it has momentum, credibility, and an example other communities can follow. Tonight, Moab has a chance to show that even a small city can take big actions, practical, scalable, and hopeful actions. Thank you for your leadership, and please vote yes on item 5.1. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. All right, anybody else want to speak? Okay, we'll move on to department updates. And first, we're going to have Alexi. She's going to be on the agenda a lot this evening. It's always nice to see Alexi in front of us. First off, we're going to talk about non-motorized trail wayfinding. And this is my understanding is the north side of town. And it's really about a connection between the city and the county, getting people out of the city into the county trails. So take it away.
Yeah.
Val's here also.
So this first update, you may remember adopting the non-motorized trail plan last year. And back around November, at the same time that was wrapping up, we were starting this to address the need that was in that plan and also in the Unified Transportation Master Plan, that we could benefit from more uniform, cohesive wayfinding to help people get around town and out of town into areas in the county. These are some examples of the variety of trail signs, different styles that we have around town. There's just a few examples. Landmark Design has been working with us to create an inventory of all of this signage. And, okay, there it is. And the different purposes of that signage. So some of it's course confirmations or decision points, interpretive signage, trailhead identifications, regulatory or safety signs, and taking this inventory of 74 existing signs, they've identified them, taken photos of them, and then they've also proposed additional places that we could use them and made some recommendations on things that we should keep, replace, remove, etc. So that is one aspect of this, providing us with some recommendations about where we want signs. And then from there, looking at how to create a cohesive system so we can have a library of signs for the different purposes that we have. All right, so we're down to a working draft on this concept. This is a little smaller than I had imagined it would be, but putting together that library of signage. So starting here in the middle of the top, they took some inspiration from our logo, and the river happens to look a lot like a trail, and created a kind of cohesive sign that we could possibly use other places. And our stakeholder group for this included a variety of city and county employees and elected people. Colin was involved in this to try to make sure that we had the opportunity for this to transition from, let's say, being on the Mill Creek Parkway to if you wanted to ride out to Arches or to the Bar M trails. So although the city of Moab could change out to be something else, we could still have this trail sign shape color system that could translate to a lot of different purposes. And then we have additionally some safety signs. This, I think, will be expanded some. Right now it's share the fun, share the path. If you can see there's a number of people doing a lot of different things on our trails, which is true. Although I don't know about riding a dinosaur. And the idea is to keep it playful, but also to have a few different versions of this to remind people about different trail etiquette and safety rules that they can follow while they're using the trails. All right, so from there we go to this library of different purposes. And the place that I have like right now, that's just the different ways that we could express an arrow on a sign. The first one is just a straight course confirmation. Then we have these coming off this sign kind of arrows that are more playful, and some kind of just directional ones that we could stick on the pole. They were just trying to give us a few different options because the committee was discussing that. But everything else here is looking at a system of signs that could work for different things. So colors can designate different types of destinations people might be going to, whether it's a city location, a city park, or maybe more of a recreational destination. Then we have things going from like a trailhead identification that would have a map to directional signs and course confirmations that might be more suited to different types of sites, or in areas where we can't even put signs, things that we could just stick on pavements for people to look at and be able to continue with that sign and stay on the trails. All of that said, we're still in the process. The committee has given them a lot of feedback. Right now, we're trying to get into more of a final stage of where the first locations for signs could be, because this will probably come in iterations of trying to sign certain directions that people might be taking or pathways they might be on trails. It won't all be at once. But this is a few examples of the kind of locations that these could show up. We've got some funding in this current fiscal year, and that'll be the first ones we roll into, and then we'll go out from there. So the yellow areas on the map are priorities for future rollouts of signs and like the first couple rounds. Are there any questions?
Questions?
Remind us, Lexi, there is funding in this current fiscal year,
Mhm.
and then also in that next year's proposed budget. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
How is this funded? I guess which budget is the CIP?
It's a CIP.
This
Yeah.
CIP currently, there is also an opportunity to apply for a UORG grant for wayfinding. So currently it's CIP. In the future, we also might find other funding sources.
Great.
Mine's more of a note, but I really love the design of the new signs. And that we could have
You have to clean up after your
They're a
dog.
hazard on the sidewalk. Yep, no, they leave doggy bags
Need a
around.
dump,
but-
need a dump truck.
Just wait till they see that jackalope though. They're gonna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Anything else for Lexi?
Well, I guess I'm interested in hearing from Colin, and I'm also interested in hearing how you guys identified the priority areas, or what you're thinking about in terms of implementation and language of signs and what
Mhm.
this starts to look like.
Like how we're picking different signs in those locations, or specifically how we picked those locations,
Um,
or both?
I guess more so that I really like the package and the diversity. I think you have 4 different examples here, several priority areas identified on the map. I guess I'm just kind of broad question about what implementation starts to look like, or like how you're starting to decide
Yeah,
sign language.
yeah. The priority locations were stakeholder feedback about particular areas that people get confused or get off trail or have trouble continuing on when they would like to. So that was a lot of the reason we picked those different locations. And then I think what we're hoping to do, and we haven't gotten to this stage yet, but we're hoping to do when we pick those first locations for signs is to get some pathway that is intact with the signs. So as in, if you got on the trail here and you got off here, you would have some continuous wayfinding and signage on that particular route. That said, some people would intersect with a route that was partially signed if they didn't have the same destination we had intended. And then we would develop it from there, is trying to come up with different routes that would be entirely signed in a way that people could follow them. And hopefully, as we build out, those connections will grow too.
And that's what I was gonna answer too. These are identified as key decision-making points. Whether places that have been either problematic in the past or, or areas of congestion, things that, we identified as just the greatest need first.
It's funny, like just today I was riding to someone and I got chastised on my infections because I was like, aren't we turning? The person was like, aren't we turning here? And I'm like, I don't know what to do here. I don't know where it goes, and I'm like, do we go here to catch the pathway, or we go down Main Street to catch and so
I can't keep holding Jason's hand through.
Yeah.
I need some signage to help him find his way through.
Did I say it was Colin?
It was just, I mean,
It was Colin.
he was breaking down. We ended up riding down the wrong way on Main Street. It was just one simple sign.
But we actually had this discussion though. We were right.
We
I'm
did,
like,
yeah.
I don't know, like, what are you supposed to do right here? Like,
Exactly,
and so this that's one of the key spots on here is right there. So
So the sign has to start out with Jason.
Jason, yeah. Get off your dinosaur and walk across.
We did want to personalize the sign.
Jason, show us some interest.
Notice one of those figures is actually a good representation.
The one on the far right.
We should do someone with Jason on there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, anything else? Go ahead, Miles.
A couple final questions. One, I'm assuming that any of the on pavement signs we're gonna be doing out of thermoplastic rather than painting,
That is the plan right
and that
now.
way they last longer.
They brought up the idea of painting, and our stakeholder group or committee had issues with the maintenance on it.
Mhm.
So it's looking like what we're going to do is full color and thermoplastic instead of doing a one color painting stencil.
Makes sense. And do we have the broad strokes on what a simple sign tree would cost?
We don't yet. Yeah, we have a few choices that we can make. They put together different options for us. This is like a summary, but essentially there's a few different ways that we could do this. Powder coating signs, layering, sandwiching signs. Some of them are going to be more durable and more expensive, and we haven't decided yet which direction we want to go. So we'll probably get a couple of them priced out, but we don't have those yet.
And I will add, Miles, that this stakeholder group was a really phenomenal group because we had Levi and Cody from Grant County Roads, and they were both able to, give a lot of input on maintenance and installation of this stuff. And so it was a very comprehensive process in terms of all those details, with such a broad, it was really cool.
That sounds excellent. Thermoplastic was top of my mind because I was like, if
Yeah.
we're going to spend money on this, let's spend money on something that's going to last versus having to maintain it frequently.
Yeah, the stakeholder group's been great, and also Landmark, I was impressed with how much research they had done on the different colors that would be available on powder coating, on the type of construction.
Yeah.
So we just haven't gotten to the point in this like process yet, and also we have to land on some other things to have our final design, like do the arrows poke off of the sign or not?
Cool.
We're almost there, I think.
Great process. Yeah, and Alexi, thank you so much for guiding this process. You did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, it's been fun.
They're good looking signs.
All right. Thank you. Don't go anywhere.
Yep. Still here.
The next item is water conservation outreach update.
Okay, I'm going to start this one, and Val is going to chime in on some of the process as well, because Lisa, Val, and I have been working on how this process, like how we will work on water conservation throughout this like summer season. So this is a follow-up on the conservation update we did at the last meeting with a little more detail on what people can do and how they will know what they should be doing. First is what the water shortage response plan recommends a variety of actions that are at this stage voluntary, but it has these are just a few examples, some specific actions that people can take and recommendations about doing it. So these actions range from fixing leaks to actions that would be targeted more at businesses, things that anybody could do in their landscape. And then these actions from the plan are what we're going to recommend people do at this point. And then if we get to a higher stage in there, some of these things would become mandatory. So Val will talk some more about how people will know what they're doing.
Yeah, so what are we actually doing and what's the plan? Like Alexi said, we've been working together with Lisa on this. Lisa put together a really great outlook of what we're thinking through the summer, through the end of September, of what we want to be doing, how we get this in front of people, what types of groups we're trying to look at for getting this in front of people. And I can just kind of read through this. Right now, we're already doing this. Lisa released the press release last week. It has some really salient points for individuals, businesses, hotels, things like that. And we've updated our information on the city website. If you just Google City of Moab water conservation, you can find it right up there. We're going to be doing one social media post a week with a different tip. Lisa already got one up last week. I'm in the trenches learning how to make a reel right now. It's lots of different noise effects and transitions and things. And we're going to be hitting it hard and making sure that people know and having a steady beat and getting the drum going on all of this. Another strategy we are going to pursue is to distribute flyers around town. That's a little bit where this $10,000 that we budgeted towards this goes to. We can physically bring these things around to hotels and rentals and businesses, as we're kind of talking about in the next point. But as all you know, as you have ran election campaigns, sending something out to every resident in the city of Moab is well within the $10,000 budget. And we're considering looking at that as well. Having something come in the mailbox and having it like kind of be official from the city and letting them know that we're doing that. Like I said, we're going to be talking to businesses. I'm already going to be talking to different hotels about, I'm just going to refresh our map outreach and talk to all the stops and hotels. So I'll already be out there, and combining that together with some water conservation talk, I think can go a really long way. And just to kind of hit on what you had been hearing, Mayor, is that, talking to restaurants about how they're using their water, talking to hotels about how often they're changing their linens and stuff like that. And that's something that I actually heard from the community myself. I was at a plant sale this weekend. Someone came up to me and was like, well, it can't just be individual. We're going to make sure that we're listening to the community and make sure that everybody's in on this. That's a lot of our messaging, that we're doing it all together. So we're going to be doing it. Individuals are going to be doing it. Businesses are going to be doing it. You can kind of look down, moving into this summer messaging. We're definitely going to be working with the city to provide feedback on how we're doing that type of stuff. Because, you'll hear complaints about seeing leaky sprinklers and stuff like that. Making sure when we're moving into the broader summer season that we're paying attention to that type of stuff, because we don't want hypocrisy when we're doing this type of stuff. And then I really like the ideas that Lisa came up here with for the pledge to reduce outdoor watering. This offering recognition stuff. There's a really cool thing that Jackson, Wyoming was doing, where they were doing a trout friendly lawn, and you got this little sign in your lawn, and it was just this little trout that kind of signified to the community that hey, I'm doing this, I'm part of this. And considering either be it it's kind of out there with these signs, but maybe just social shout outs, little certificates you can get to offer recognition for this stuff, and have it in a public space where it's kind of this social compact where oh, my neighbor's doing that, so maybe I'll do that too, is an idea that we were thinking about. Again, social media, we're going 1 to 3 per week. Workshops, either us hosting them, or there's tons of workshops on this type of stuff, and using social media to kind of channel people towards that stuff. Continuing that business outreach as the feedback that the mayor had received, making sure that we're paying attention to the community's needs and what they are talking about. And then, through September, toward the end, we'll have some results from this. This will also be done in accordance with our water conservation plan. So we will be concordantly working on what we are going to do to conserve water on a broader basis. And that can really tie into what our results were, what our feedback from the community was. And on the next slide, you can kind of see that some of this stuff is already coming together. Lisa put together this press release, and both the papers are talking about it. Lisa put up this really great social media post on the top left here on Friday. And we're just going to be continuing this beat. There's an example of one of those webinars on there as well. And happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Questions?
Is it, when people get their water bills, doesn't it show on there what they pay or what the meter was last year compared to this year? Or does it? You guys know?
I
I'm
don't.
not sure.
I was just gonna say, I would really like to know how to read my water bill.
Because I
don't know.
I don't know if that's a possibility or something, but sometimes it's hard to am I doing better or worse than I am last year? If there's something, I think it'd be great if there's some sort of, each house had its own portal that you could look at and see, what your water usage was online or something. That's probably not realistic. But even if you got the water meter bill, is there something on there that says you use this much water last year, use this much this year, and put a smiley face next to it, or something like that? Because I think a lot of times people just don't know if they're doing good or doing bad, and stuff. So,
Right.
or where they're at within the scale. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we do a tiered approach?
We
for billing?
do. That will also be something that we consider more when the rate study comes up. So right now it's a gentle slope, and it could be steeper than it is. So we do, but we probably will evaluate whether we want to do it differently.
Yeah, and that is coming up in that water master plan. And we talked about the rate study. And then we will check with Marcy, get a copy of water bill and see if there's anything that we can do to make that.
Right, and
More
same, I
readable.
went to a water policy workshop, and that's what they said is you have 3 tiers. The one tier is just normal users, and then when you get to the 3rd tier, it's a huge spike. If you're watering over a certain amount, and that tends to be a huge deterrent because, like you said, people don't really know. And so I just wasn't sure if we do have that tiered approach and how steep it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to find a recommendation from us that we increase the grade
Right.
on that slope. But we need to get to that master plan and everything. But that's one of the tools that we have in our toolbox that the council can use.
Go ahead, Miles.
I so love I now want a trout friendly lawn sticker to stick in my yard. I think that kind of pledge or otherwise sounds great. I think if we make the tier for water payments steeper, one thing that I would consider is building some kind of plan for forgiveness if you have a leak and you're low income. And making it really obvious on your bill if the city thinks you have a leak, because that could become massively expensive for somebody
Right.
without them being aware of it. So like that first month that you haven't, an exorbitant water bill, if you, meet low income requirements, maybe you're forgiven some of that as long as you address the leak. And if you don't address it, then it's kind of on you. But that's my only concern in that regards, because I've seen people with crazy water bills because they had a leak that never showed above ground.
Right.
That's, yeah, and I agree 100% with that, what you're saying and stuff. But I wish there was a way, and I guess going back to just like the technology, stuff is, because, you may not know you have a water leak for 30 days,
Yeah.
until you get that second bill and
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Don't we already have a mechanism
We
in place where
We do.
Yeah, if it's something that was not the fault and was unknown to the customer, we have a process that they can go through where we can give some relief on that. And yeah, we hope everybody's looking at their bill every month, because you would find out really quickly, or not really quickly. It'd take a second to see the spike to know that something's wrong. So
And I think we actually proactively, I think we notify people when.
I think we do, yeah.
We do see that. they-
Mhm. We don't get very many of these, but we have had them. And we're dealing with water lines that are underground. There's all kinds of things that can happen to them. And we own a lot of these. That's one of our responsibilities too. And something we're going to hear from the golf course coming up in a couple of weeks is something they want to prevent as well, because there's a lot of waste that comes from broken lines, and usually it's not the day of that you find out. So something we're working on. I think we're doing a pretty good job.
I will say, for any member of the public that is interested, there are home monitoring systems that are fairly inexpensive that you could install in your home that would use smart technology to determine if you're outside of your average water usage and alert you via like literally text message. So for anyone in the public who's particularly concerned about that, that's out there.
Maybe we should include that in some of our outreach stuff, so if you want to, as a resident, as an individual, monitor your own water, here's an a way that you could do that.
It's also great if you're out of town for a
Right.
couple months out of the year. Otherwise, that it keeps an eye on things and can even shut off the water for you if it thinks you have a leak.
Any other questions on this outreach? Yes.
I do. I have another broad educational. I've seen a lot of comments on Facebook about how the golf course is using half of the water in the city, and you need to go after hotels and businesses, and we shouldn't be going after residents. And so I think OB has provided that information to us as recent as strategic planning, but providing more information about how much water is actually residential use, and specifically like outdoor, like all of these things that we're encouraging prevention on, to even give people that information of like, actually, this is a community conversation, community issue. It is an individual thing to evaluate.
Yeah. Balancing what I was saying earlier with like making sure that we're making sure businesses are doing things, but also I like providing concrete percentages to folks to like end that Facebook echo, if you will.
Yeah. And we will be updating those, because I think the numbers right now are something like about 60% of our water is towards some kind of landscape, and 16% is to like more of a tourism, like hotel purpose. However, when we update the water conservation plan, that is where the numbers come from. We'll also be able to update those numbers.
Yep, it's something we'll actively be looking into. Like I said before, that draft is due July 15th, and we're planning on having a workshop with you all on June 23rd. So it'll be fairly timely, and we'll have brand new numbers to tell Facebook all about.
Any other questions? I just have one, and so maybe Levi can help with this. What is the city actually going to do for our water conservation?
Well, they're already watering at night, and Levi, come on and join. And then we also have already installed smart sprinkler systems that are weather responsive.
Great.
Regarding our city parks, we've installed smart monitors, smart technology to we can operate them by our phones, and so we're adjusting the times. we've already taken steps to, I lost what I was gonna say.
To conserve, yeah.
Water in the parks, the time of day, and adjusting the sprinklers. We've eliminated some sprinklers because it was just overwatering. And that's the first step. We have more stuff to work on.
Yeah, our staff is actively looking for leaks as well. And when we hear about a leak, we're fixing them right away. If anyone sees a sprinkler that's shooting straight up in the air, let us know. We'll get right on it. The golf course was brought up. One of the things that we've done recently is we've got a new lease with the golf course that will be on the agenda in 2 weeks. And the golf course is prohibited from using water from our system during certain months out of the year. That's one of the conservation measures that we're doing. And then we'll also be working with them, not our golf course, our property, but they're leasing it, working with them and helping them install smart monitors and also do a lot of things that Levi was just talking about.
Great, thanks. I think Val's point, we got to set the example. So I knew you guys were doing something, but I thought it'd be great for the public to know what it was.
You can make some cool reels with it too.
Good. That's great.
Excellent.
Okay, anything else for Levi while he's up here? All right, you guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, moving on to consent agenda. We have 4 items: Public Works Week proclamation, which I'm going to read. Ratification of a letter of support for the water tank and transit study. This is for Congress, and we understand that Curtis has included this in the appropriations request for this year. Ratification of a letter to Grand County regarding the Steen rezone. If you remember, we talked about this last week, and so the letter was sent before their commission meeting, and it sounds like that rezone consideration with the county has been pulled. And then consideration and acceptance of fiscal year 2026 third quarter finance report. Do you have anything you want to mention about that?
I can just say a couple words really quick
Okay.
if you'd like. So the third quarter looks good. We're still strong. We're reporting revenues at 65% and expenses at 50%. But so the important part is the revenues are higher than the expenditures. A lot of transfers have not taken place yet. Those transfers will increase the revenues and increase expenditures. But independently, revenues and expenditures are doing really well. Revenues are higher than expenditures. When we're just talking about the taxes, though, the taxes we collect, and most of these are tourism related, we are tracking ahead of usual at this time of year at about 81%. And that, remember, is just at the end of March. And we're going to see taxes coming in for the rest of the fiscal year as well. So we're at about 81%. So looking good. Nobody can tell the future, but it seems like it's been really busy in town. And if that's any indication, which it usually is, we're looking forward to some strong revenues going forward.
Any questions on the finances? All right. I'm going to go ahead now and read the proclamation for National Public Works Week. And I just like to say, our Public Works Department is probably the strongest face of our community, aside from the police department. But usually, well, I don't even want to say that, but these guys are out there working really hard all the time, and they talk to a lot of people in our community, and they do everything in support and service to our community. So Public Works Week is a very important week. It's May 17th through the 23rd. And it's rooted in service, powered by community. And that kind of says it all. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facility, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Moab, Utah. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public work professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in Moab to gain knowledge of and maintain an ongoing understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. Whereas the year 2026 marks the 66th annual National Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Be it now resolved, I, Joette Langenese, Mayor, do hereby designate the week of May 17th through the 23rd, 2026 as the National Public Works Week. I urge all citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public work professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and advancing quality of life for all. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the state done at Moab on this day, 2026. Is there a seal? Okay. Anyway, thanks Levi and your team and Obi for all the work that you do for our community. Really appreciate it. You bet. Okay, I will ask for a motion to approve items 4.1 through 4.4, the consent agenda. Where are they?
Minutes and those.
Oh, I'm sorry. I do. That's the approval of the minutes. I forgot. I looked at this page and for some reason I thought they were something else. So we've got Public Works Proclamation, ratify of 2 letters of support or 1 letter of support, 1 letter to Grant County, consideration acceptance of fiscal year through third quarter finance report, approval of the minutes for April 14th regular meeting and April 17th the special joint city and county meeting, and approval of the bills against the city of Moab in the amount of $407,022.14.
I'll motion to approve the consent agenda.
All right. Do I have a second? Motion by Caitlin, second by Colin. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes 5-0. Okay, moving on. Consideration, our first item of business, consideration of ordinance 2026-09 and ordinance of City of Moab enacting chapter 9.44 of the Moab Municipal Code, Community Clean Energy Program. Alexi.
Sorry, it's gonna take me a second. My computer decided to have problems this evening. Yeah. Yeah, I've been kicked out of Zoom twice and I'm starting to lose my screen. Okay. Okay, so after years in the making, the Community Clean Energy Program is finally ready for your consideration. This has been going on since 2019, but we'll get into that. I'm going to go through a recap of where this has been, then talk a little bit about what it means as far as costs to customers, the low income accommodations, an opt-out option, and the timeline after the program, because up until this point, we've been building up to this decision point of whether or not the city decides to participate. And then I will be happy to answer any questions. I do want to note that you may have seen this referred to in different ways over the years. There was a Community Renewable Energy Agency, CREA, for a little while. There was also Utah Renewable Communities, and now there's a Community Clean Energy Program. Some of this is legislative changes, changing from renewable to clean, and then also Utah Renewable Communities is an informal name for this. And then Community Clean Energy Program is an official name of what this program would be called after this. Okay, why are we looking at Utah Renewable Communities? A lot of this is because we volunteered for this. With a resolution in 2017, we established a renewable energy goal and a reduction goal for emissions at 80% by 2040. That was updated in 2019 for an accelerated goal for 100% renewable electricity, which qualified us for this program. From there, in 2021, we approved an interlocal agreement for URC. Sustainability and environmental sustainability was a pillar in our Moab Tomorrow Together vision and strategic action plan. It's in our general plan, and also it's in our sustainability plan. So a lot of it's just because it aligns with our adopted goals. There are other reasons too, like spreading high cost infrastructure over more customers makes it more accessible, less expensive for people to get into having renewable electricity on their bills. In this case, Moab's a pretty small place, but there are a lot of other communities that are members of this. So it's making it more accessible for residents here. It also gives people a choice. There is an option for people to just opt out and not participate, but this is something that people would not have access to otherwise. So it gives people an additional choice if they're looking for renewable energy sources. This makes it more accessible, and it's the only way this particular option would be accessible to residents and businesses in Moab. It's an investment in clean energy. It's good for the health and environment. And also Utah is looking for more electricity. The governor has formally said that this is something that we are going to need for the future. And part of the Utah Renewable Communities, or the clean energy program, is that it will bring more electricity onto the grid. So who are, or what are, the Utah Renewable Communities? It's 19 towns and cities, counties, which use about 20% of Utah's electrical loads. That's a substantial amount of electricity. It was enabled, like I said, in 2019 by HB 411. And then the goal is to drive the production of clean energy while keeping the program affordable and accessible, and to build resources to match that electricity. So that the amount of electricity used by the people in the program is the amount that the program is generating. It might take us a little while to get there because this is going to be new electricity for the cities that are participating, but that is the big goal. So those new resources would go on the grid. Rocky Mountain Power, the current utility provider, would be picking up the electricity from those, and not the specific electron, but essentially that electricity would be used for the load in the participating communities. So far, 4 communities have already adopted the ordinance and are officially participants and moving forward with this option for their residents. That includes Summit County, Salt Lake City, Immigration Canyon, and Springdale. This week, Moab is considering it, Park City is considering it in Mill Creek, and then a number of other communities are considering it in May. We have until June 2nd to make a decision. Okay, this is essentially explaining how this would work, as in we know how much consumption, or we will know once communities decide whether or not they're participating, how much consumption. From there, that tells us how much would need to be generated by the program. Some renewable electricity is already on the Rocky Mountain Power grid. That would be kept as an existing source for these communities. And from there, the idea would be to close the gap on conventional resources. So over time, this would phase in. This is the timeline. I won't go through everything we've done to get here. I've talked about it a little bit, but along the way, the final step that made this possible was the Public Service Commission approved a program that was developed by Moab and the other participating communities. Once that was approved, it made this option available to all the communities that were participating to decide whether to adopt the program through this ordinance. Participation, as outlined by the program that was approved by the Public Service Commission, says that people will remain Rocky Mountain customers. They will be automatically enrolled in the program with an option to opt out. That would be free for 6 billing cycles. And then after that, people could still opt out at any time, but there would be a termination fee of $30. Non-residential involves a lot of different kinds of schedules, so those vary by the schedules people are on. People would receive 2 notices. The first one would be via mail, like posted in their mailbox. And then the second one would be however they usually get their utility bill. So if you usually get your utility bill by email, your second notice would be by email. And then there are also some low income customer provisions, which will go more in depth into, but the bottom line is that their termination fees would be waived. And also if they're participating in qualifying programs, their additional costs per month would be zero. Here is what it would look like for most participants. So if an eligible residential customer, so this would be most people on their home bills, they would have a $3.88 charge in a month. That would be a program participation fee. That would go to developing new resources that are renewable for people who are participating, and also to administering and developing those resources. So whatever cost it takes to develop those. And then there'd be a 12-cent surcharge that would fund the low income program for a total of $4 a month. A low income residential customer would see the $3.88 program participation fee, and then there would be a bill credit that would offset that. So the total cost would be zero. There are a few exceptions. Almost everybody would be opted into this, and you would have to opt out. There are some customers who are on Schedule 135, which was for solar net metering, I believe. At the very beginning, those people would not be opted in. They're not compatible. So for most of them, they will probably choose to stay on Schedule 135, but it would be possible if for some reason they wanted to come off of it, they could then participate in the program. But that's among the very few exceptions. People would be able to access the low income credit by either being a participant in the HEAT program or the HELP program. If they are already participants in those programs, this would automatically apply to them. If they are not, then they could, if they qualified, they could join one of those programs, and that's how they would see the bill credit. There's also a number of special provisions within the legislation for how people should be notified of this. In addition to those two notifications, we have a low-income outreach plan where we contact a lot of different community organizations, provide them with information, offer them an in-person meeting, posters, different ways to try to reach people so they'll know that this program is coming and know how to access the credit if they want it. For non-residential customers, like I said, people are on a lot of different schedules. So I set this up for what it would look like for a couple of the city buildings on a commercial rate. The city center, which is a smallish office building that used to be a school, it would be about $6.28 more per month. For the MRAC, which has a pool and a gym and uses a lot more electricity, it would be closer to $156 per month. That is about a 5% increase on the bills for non-residential customers, but it just depends on their use as to how much that dollar amount would be. Long-term, program rates are not expected to increase. In fact, the Public Service Commission specifically said that there's no evidence in the record to say that they would increase, and said it's more likely that they would decrease over time. Part of this is because the first couple years, there has to be a fund built up in case the program for some reason ended, so Rocky Mountain Power doesn't lose money. They also have to build up a fund so they can build these renewable resources. And then after time, some of those startup costs would no longer be a factor, and it would be more a factor of how much does the electricity cost. And at this point, renewables are often less expensive than new fossil fuel resources. So what comes next? Today, we can consider this or table it for a future if the council prefers. From there, until June 2nd, Moab and other communities have the opportunity to decide whether to adopt the program. Once that happens, communities that are participating will begin low-income outreach, and they have from the ordinance adoption, and actually before that, but it doesn't make sense to do it until we know if we're participating, to do this 1 year of outreach to different groups to make sure people know that this is happening. That will precede the actual start of the program, which is expected to finally show up on people's bills closer to the beginning of 2027. From the beginning of noticing, which will also start before people are billed, there will be 2 billing cycles where customers will receive their notification that this is happening. That will be in addition to any other outreach that we will do. And there will be those 2 months of fee-free opt-out before anything appears on the bill. And there will be 4 more months of the option to opt out without a charge. One of the things I anticipate being a big issue is just the communication that this is coming. Even from now, it's several months before this would appear on anyone's bills. The good news is that we do have good partners in this. So far, as a participant or a member of the board of the Utah Renewable Communities, we are also a member of the communication committee on the board. We've had a lot of assistance and help with putting together social media posts, press releases, and getting coverage about this to try to make it more public so more people can get access to the information. Okay, so we talked a little bit about what this means for the city. It means doing some outreach, that everybody would be opted into the program, residential, non-residential, with only a few exceptions. As a city, there are a few things that we have already been responsible for, contributing funds to pay consultants. We were also an anchor committee, anchor community member of the Utah Renewable Communities Board. Those things are already done. Entering into a utility agreement that was already approved by City Council. From here, the next thing and the only thing that we are officially responsible for is reimbursing Rocky Mountain Power for the costs of the noticing to the customers. From there, customers would be paying into the program and the program would become self-supporting. The decision this evening is whether to adopt or not adopt the program. If we did adopt, then this would be something that would continue moving, and eventually residential customers would see a $4 charge on their bill, but there's a lot of stuff that would happen between now and then. If we chose not to adopt it, then we would leave the Utah Renewable Communities Board and people would continue to receive the reliable service that they're getting from Rocky Mountain Power. Are there any questions?
Questions for Lexi?
So many. So I do have a couple questions. First of all, so the $4, where does the $4 go to?
It goes to Rocky Mountain Power. However, what the Utah Renewable Communities Program has already done is they put out an RFP for new proposals for projects. I believe they got something like 16 responses and then they shortlisted to 4. They're in conversations about projects to build. So Rocky Mountain Power is our partner in this, but basically Rocky Mountain Power would be collecting this, but it would be going towards these new renewable energy projects and the administration of them.
Okay. Is there anything like down the road where Rocky Mountain Power customers, because it's almost like we're buying stock in futures of, of the grid, or whatever these things are going to. Once these things start producing power and stuff, is there any discussion that will then come back to these communities at a different rate or a lower rate since we invested into those
right,
renewable energy infrastructure?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for the new projects, a lot of this will be cost-based since it is chosen by the communities that are participating, and we all have limits onto what we would let be charged to our residents. There's some limits that, like, if it would get higher. So don't anticipate that, but there were discussions through the Public Service Commission application about whether it would be allowed to go lower because, like you said, things can change. And in this case, it is, I think, possible that things could change and it could become lower. There will be annual changes to the rates like there are to kind of all electricity rates. So on an up to, I think it's limited at annual basis, there could be adjustments to the rates.
Would Rocky Mountain Power like do like a yearly annual report, maybe like where these funds have gone, what projects they've been doing, so that, because I think that'd be important to let people know kind of like, oh, this is what we've been able to do with that, and stuff, and where they've met certain, criteria.
Yeah, I don't know if Rocky Mountain Power will, but the Utah Renewable Communities Board will continue to exist and is going to continue to work on procurement for building these new projects. So I think we will have access to that information as a member of the board if we approved it.
Okay. No, and I kind of say I absolutely support this, and I think that it's important to support it. Just like yesterday with my other job, I got to listen to the governor speak about the gigawatt project, and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And it was really interesting listening to him about how invested Utah has become in this, and that we have to, going after like solar energy or wind power and stuff is not like or nuclear energy for that matter, whatever it is. We're not like sliding these other industries. We're just having more energy arrows in our quiver, and I think that as we go through the future, that this is really going to make us more energy independent, for our residents, as things are coming up. So I think it's really important that if people in the community are like, $4 is too much, and maybe it is, or I don't want to my $4 to go to a solar farm someplace, they can pull out. There's always that option, they can pull out. However, as residents, we're kind of helping to secure our future in in this sector and in these energy needs and stuff. So I think it's really important for Moab residents to understand that and understand that we are working towards a more independent energy future like this.
Mm-hmm.
So
Who else has questions? Go ahead.
I have a few. Yeah, so it's kind of, I think Miles has been the rep on this, but having been the rep the last couple of years, it's really exciting. I do want to give Kaylin and the previous council big kudos for signing on to this. Being an acre community, I know that this has been a big thing for Kaylin, so I appreciate him coming and speaking to us earlier today. Kind of echoing what you said, I think energy independence and kind of diversity of energy sources, especially given kind of all of the recent things about Moab City and our involvement with energy development in this area. I think more and more types are better, and so I'm really excited. I do have to say, I think it's shameful for Berkshire Hathaway to put this burden on people rather than them as a corporation in building out these projects that they have the money to do. But outside of that, and outside of kind of corporate, national, international things, I think that it's really amazing that Utah has kind of led with Operation Gigawatt, and with this through the years has been really forward thinking on how to work through energy systems for communities. So yeah, I'm interested and excited to see how it goes. And I think I did have a question. One of my questions was, have you heard any updates about kind of what the projects are that are being evaluated in the RFP process?
I don't have a lot of updates on that. What they provided to us, even as a board, was blacked out, so we wouldn't know the actual bidders. So they provided us essentially with information on like the pricing for them, but we didn't get a lot of information on what the actual projects are yet. I think that has to do with like the businesses that are involved in the projects and commercial viability for them. So not yet, but since we are down to a short list, I anticipate that we'll know pretty soon what the final options are.
Anybody else? Miles, do you want to add?
Yeah, I'd love to speak in support of this and frankly echo a lot of what Caitlin and Jason said. I have, in my short time being part of this and kind of following this process, I'm really looking forward to what it can bring to our community and our state as a whole. I think, as Jason pointed out, it's not about sliding or walking away from more conventional energy creation, but it's about diversifying where we're getting our energy from. And in a big way, like, I think a lot of us can support it. And I really like the way that this is all structured, because it does allow for low income folks to be a part of the program without feeling the burden. And I mean, the $4 a month feels like a pretty reasonable burden for a lot of our residents. I was happy when I saw that figure and they kind of settled on what this would be, that it was not a significant addition to our utility bills. And then of course the option to opt out if you do not agree with it, or if you just, if the $4 really matters. But yeah, I'm looking forward to having this and being a community that leads the charge in our energy diversity and independence.
Great. Anybody else?
I think it is really important to support this. This has been part of our goals. When I say our, I mean the city, for the better part of a decade. And it was part of our Tomorrow Together project, and our community supported it. I think it would be foolish to have invested this much time, this much energy and outreach to pull the plug on the last minute. And that was a terrible pun. But I think it's really important to support this.
I'll just say thanks for your work on this, Alexi, and I agree. And I think this program is an improvement on some of the existing and possibly sunsetting programs like the Blue Sky program. I always worry about stuff like this where where we're taking the lead and really sort of pushing the development of cleaner energy sources. And I worry, well, at the same time, some of the existing not so clean energy sources are being taken up by some new development like data centers and other things. But I really think to really walk the walk as a community, investing in this is absolutely the right thing to do. And I think the big savings in the end, or the big win is just cleaner air and water. So thank you.
Sure.
One more. Just tying this to the low income plan with the residential utility assistance program. I guess kind of flagging that as we're looking at that, kind of one hand holding the other on outreach for that.
Yeah, definitely.
Any other questions for Lexi? Could I have
Thanks,
a
Lexi.
motion?
I will happily move. I move to approve Moab City Council Ordinance 2026-09, an ordinance of the City of Moab enacting Chapter 9.44 of the Moab Municipal Code, Community Clean Energy Program.
Motion by Miles, second.
I'll second.
Second by Tawny. Any further discussion, Miles?
No, thank you to everyone that set us on this path. Thank you to all of the staff that did the hard work to put this together. I'm looking forward to this.
Tawny? No. Anybody else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. All right, Lexi.
Thanks.
Item 5.2, consideration of an ordinance 2026-10 imposing a temporary ban on the discharge of fireworks within designated areas of Moab and establishing Chapter 8.14.010 of the Moab Municipal Code. And I believe the fire department's here. We'd love to have you guys.
Yeah.
come.
TJ, Chief, if you don't mind coming up. So I'm
We
gonna,
got the fire chief here. So if you have any questions for him, it's great to see you.
Nice to see you.
And Michael will get going.
okay. So every year we need to take a look at our fire restrictions based on the current information, the current situation on the ground, and we work with the fire department to do that. There we go. So it's called a temporary ban on the discharge of fireworks because we need to look at it every year. And we do have the authority from the state to do this. It's well established that working with the fire department, that communities can do this. And if they don't, then the state fire marshal, to my understanding, will just designate certain areas as high risk. So this is a great way for us to have a hand in what is being restricted within our community. And this is specific to fireworks again. The restrictions are based on the hazardous conditions that exist this year. And as I said, we did work with Moab Valley Fire Department to institute these. The restriction ordinance is meant to protect health, public safety, structures, people. That's the reason why we're putting this in, and property. So the current fire danger in 2026, as we all know, there's dry conditions. We have a lot of wildland or urban interface and creek corridors where we can see urban interface would be, having a house right next to one of these properties. And if the fire spread to one of these interface properties, it could travel up and down the creek and move into other neighborhoods a lot quicker than anybody wants it to. So we have highlighted areas where fireworks will be completely prohibited. We did amend the language on the map to make sure that that was 100% clear. And the group all agreed that that was the right language, but it is an outright ban in these areas. This is the official map that I'm showing you here today, and the official map has been submitted as part of the ordinance. The high-risk areas include, like I said, the creek corridors and any areas where there is any interface with natural areas where there might be a lot of fire fuels. The city of Moab only allows legal fireworks in the areas outside of these restricted areas. Legal fireworks are defined. They're generally the ones that you can buy from somebody who's selling them at a stand in Utah, not Colorado or Idaho or wherever else you might get them, but in Utah. So this is the map that we're proposing. There's an ordinance that goes with this. It's really straightforward. It is an outright ban in these areas. We're recommending approval of it. And I asked Chief Brewer to be here tonight so he could give some comments as well.
Yeah, I strongly support this ordinance. We've discussed it, and legislatively we looked at, is it a citywide ban? And I don't think legislatively we could have done that. So we looked at some historical fires. We looked at the code and the hazardous environmental conditions. Echoing what City Manager Black said, is it's a extremely dry year, and historically, you guys have all known about the fires that we've had in the creek beds. You guys are lucky to have a really, really good fire department with some great men and women fighting fires for you. The problem is when we get into these creek beds, it's hard for us to access them. They become major fires, and the drawdown is significant. So during the 4th of July weekend, we stage fire engines up and down the creek corridor. But a lot of times we can't catch them quickly. And it really draws down on your resources. So keeping these fires out of the creek beds would be really advantageous to the whole city.
And one more thing, our police department also has a copy of this map, and they will be enforcing this map. There is a violation section in here, and it is a serious offense to light off fireworks in these prohibited areas.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. No, you can go.
Okay. I was just gonna ask, like, some of these areas where the Moab City kind of overlaps or ends, like on like Pack Creek with with the county. Are there fire restrictions in those areas? Because like on the map it shows like Pack Creek. There's like a gap, between the city limit signs. I would assume that inside that gap is also a fire ban within the county, or is that?
The county hasn't done a fire ban yet. I would like to work closely with the county to do the same thing.
Okay, but that is probably on the agenda then to work with them on that. Then,
I would hope so.
Yeah. No, I guess yeah. So, my big frustration is I wish it could be broader. Especially when I know like you guys, on like 4th of July night, you hear fireworks and fire engines, and it's just you guys are going 12 different directions, putting things out, and it seems like you guys are just, I don't know, chasing something that could just be a catastrophe, and you guys are awesome. You guys, I think, like,
appreciate that.
amazing.
I think this is a step in the right direction, and we discussed this that if we did a citywide ban, which again legislatively I don't think we could unless we could prove the hazardous environmental conditions throughout the city. I think it's a step in the right direction, and I think you're going to have people light fireworks off no matter what you do. So we want to make criminals out of people that are lighting them off on the blacktop or sidewalks. So I hear what you're saying. If you notice today, the cotton's flying really bad, so that'll keep me up tonight.
Anybody else? I just want to make.
Go ahead.
a comment on, I lived down at the end of Bartlett, and there was a fire about 15 years ago, and our whole neighborhood almost burned down. And it wasn't on 4th of July, it was like the first part of July. And your dad was the fire chief at the time, and I'll never forget him pulling up into the back of my house on city property and just shaking his head going, and the fire was like, it was a windy day, 50-mile-an-hour winds. And he was just, he was beside himself, you
Yeah.
know, and
Was.
I can't tell you what he said
Yeah.
to me, but he was really, really worried.
I
And
heard
that-
him on the radio.
and that fire blew up, and luckily the wind shifted and it went away from our neighborhood to another neighborhood. The whole fire department, they left their truck there, and they all left because they were in danger, and they told us to evacuate, and we didn't. We got everything ready to go. I know we got our bikes and our golf clubs and
important
the
stuff.
animals.
Yep.
But anyway, I just so much appreciate what you guys do. And, you know, we've had 4 fires recently, 2 up on the mountain, 2 in town, all human caused. And so it's a tough job, and really appreciate it. And I wish I was at some fire at a conference in St. George with the League of City and Towns, and I went to a fire workshop. And what surprised me, we had over 1,100 wildfires in Utah last year. 60% of them were human caused.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I don't know what we can do to educate people, especially this year, on just being careful when you're out there. And I think this is a step in that right direction.
It
But
definitely is. Yeah.
I wish there was more we could do. The state doesn't really offer a whole lot of money to help with that type of education, which was a little surprising. It's all about educating us and what we can do around our own homes, but how we educate the general public and how they can prevent it in the first place. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. I
everything.
appreciate the support. Utah Fire Info is a great place. They do a lot of PR stuff
Right.
there. And I think with the CWDG project and a few of those other projects, we're making our community a lot safer for these big events.
Right.
So thank you. Thank you.
I live in that neighborhood too, and you took your golf clubs and your bikes. We took our dogs and cat.
They were ready. We were ready. And
And-
luckily we didn't have to leave.
And yeah, we did evacuate, and it was a few intense hours before we could go home.
That was a big fire.
It was a big fire, and
Yeah.
it was not caused by children. It was caused by adults and bottle rockets. And
Well, they were children. They were young kids. I saw them.
I'm not giving them breaks.
Anyway,
They're acting.
I just want to know what
Very
the
weak,
punishment
right?
is if
they
you
were
get
camped back there.
caught lighting fireworks in these areas.
What's up to a Class B with this code? So yeah,
We're not
Class B
gonna pop
misdemeanor.
fingers off.
And we will share this through social media. We'll get the maps out through all of our channels, make sure people are aware of this, and we'll be diligent.
Anything else? I'll ask for a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 2026-10, imposing a temporary ban on the discharge of fireworks within designated areas of the city of Moab.
Motion by Colin. Second?
I'll second.
Second by Miles. Any further discussion, Colin?
None.
Miles?
Thanks
Any-
for all you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Anybody else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
All right, our last item of business is item 5.3, consideration of speed limits in certain routes in the city of Moab. And Lex and Levi are you gonna introduce this, or they?
I'm gonna actually say something after their presentation.
Okay.
They've got the presentation.
Good there. Good evening. Thank you for letting us be here and talk about speed limits. Jump forward. This is more of a discussion today and just to present some of the ideas and some of the things we've been working on together as a team. We're going to propose some ideas and changes to speed limits in certain routes. The background is we've been reviewing city ordinances, case laws, legislation, best practices, safety, enforceability. And to give you a little bit more background, the prima facie speed limit in Moab, as set by our own city ordinance, is 20 miles per hour. There's not a speed sign. There are only very few roads that are above 20 miles per hour and designated as such right now. And we're going to talk about some of those where we've identified a need to consolidate and make a a uniform and enforceable speed limit so that we can enforce that against all street legal vehicles in those areas. So the main areas that we wanted to focus on, Mill Creek, specifically from 400 East up to Sand Flats, 5th West, 400 North to Cane Creek, 4th North, 100 West, Williams Way, 4th East, although that's going to undergo some major redesign. So we'll discuss that and evaluate that afterwards. So some quick background, that's our city limits there. And these are the routes that are not currently 20 miles per hour. These have different speed limits. These are the ones we wanted to talk about making some changes. Some of them are, I think, a little bit more of a no-brainer than others. And so we wanted to kind of discuss that with you and some of our thought process. 100 West is one of the ones I think is more or less a no-brainer. There are so many crosswalks, pedestrian traffic, businesses there. It's 25 currently. We'd propose to move that to 20 miles per hour. Additionally, 400 North, especially where it goes through school zones, everything else there is currently 25. We would propose making that 20 as well. Williams Way through that residential area is 25 still. We also would propose that go to 20 miles per hour on Williams. 5th West, same area from 400 North down to Cane Creek, and then Cane Creek itself as well. We are recommending 20 miles per hour be considered there. And then on Mill Creek Drive, from 4th East specifically up to Sand Flats, we are also going to propose 20 miles per hour for that stretch for all street legal vehicles.
Chief, I think we were going to include Cane Creek out to the city limits to the west, right?
Yes, we were.
Okay.
I think it just didn't get added to the map, but Cane Creek to the end of city limit. That is, I mean, in a nutshell, what we are talking about. So I'll give you the streets there. And again, this is us making some suggestions and recommendations based on what we've looked at and what we think is appropriate. There are going to be some considerations. For instance, 4th East, we mentioned there's ongoing planning and changes there. So
on these streets we've identified, there are 23 active speed limit signs on these streets. If we do include 4th East, there'd be 30. We do have enough materials on hand to make these changes. We will have to replenish our resource. But sure.
Questions?
No, I was gonna say, like, through like this whole process that's been going on the last few months, I appreciate how much thought you guys have put into this and trying to, figure out like these streets. And I think reducing the speed limits on some of these streets is gonna be a huge improvement for safety, in these areas. And so, yeah, like it blows me away that 100, 100 West was 25. It's like, what? You gotta be kidding, and so I think that, I really, I think this is a very logical and makes sense. What you guys come up with.
And I would add to that, what really strikes me about this is, I was very much involved in the planning process for the non-motorized transportation master plan. And so many of these identified routes are consistent with existing active transportation or proposed active transportation infrastructure. And so I love the idea of reducing automobile speeds and, to complement those existing infrastructure or potentially developed infrastructure. So thank you.
Miles.
Yeah, I want to echo a lot of that. I think several of these streets identified, it makes absolute sense to reduce the speed limit. And it's funny because one of the first things I said when I moved to Moab was just how different a commute was in this town. Moving from a big city where my commute could be anywhere between 40 minutes and 2 hours based on traffic. It seems silly to be too stressed out. Like, I plan on driving every single one of these routes at 25 and 20 miles an hour and figuring out just how many seconds it adds to reduce the speed. But frankly, like, I spend a lot of time driving around for my job, and I've seen a lot of close calls on the road, and every single one of these streets it is a hot spot for that. And I would only add that, as we discussed Fourth East and the change or otherwise, I know that sometimes the way government works, it takes a long time to proceed with like a full redo project and move that forward. And particularly the crosswalk there at the intersection of Mill Creek Drive with Dave's and Milt's and Moss, that I've seen some like screech tires as kids, run out into that crosswalk, and I would love to see right around that area be reduced as well in a more timely manner than waiting for the full redo.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm wondering, Levi, on the flashing signs, are we able to just reprogram those? Or do we have to replace those?
We can reprogram them.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay,
So are you looking for specific yes, no on this, or what's?
I'm gonna ask for a motion to approve the recommendation. But we have to bring it back as an ordinance, so we have to update the ordinance.
Yeah, and I can explain that.
Well, I was kind of thinking about that. There is a consideration. Because we've got these recommendations and they're asking for direction, I would ask that you would move to approve the speed limits, and then we'll come back. The recommendations, and we'll come back with an ordinance.
Yeah, basically what I was gonna say, so.
Okay, I guess my specific comment looking at these, I think most of these make sense. I guess I'm curious about 500 West, like 500 West and 400 North, especially thinking about roadway design. It doesn't feel congruent with 20 miles an hour, especially that section of 500 West. So I'm curious why that was specifically included. I probably would propose pulling those. I think most of the others make sense. And I think even thinking about King Creek Boulevard, that used to be 25. People used to drive that. I think with traffic calming, I want to be thinking more about that and how to implement that on 500 West, 400 North to actually encourage people to drive more slowly within those speed limits. But it feels too soon for those two particular streets.
So I can speak to 500 West for sure. What was the other street? I'm sorry. King North. 400 North. So let's start with 500 West. I mean, the reality there is that traffic is a little bit different there than the rest of 500 West. There's a lot of tourism related traffic in that area. It's an area that we have several crosswalks. We do have people walking back and forth, and there's a lot of activity there. In fact, we have a couple parks in that area, and we also have a lot of active transportation going on in that area. I agree with you on the design. I think we're a little bit ahead as far as the 3 E's go that I talk about. This would be education, and then we have enforcement, but the engineering is a little bit behind. I do think that it is appropriate in this situation because of the disproportionate traffic that is related to tourism, for this section to be at 20 miles an hour, even though the street still feels like 25 or 30 mile an hour street. And Fourth North, I would just say the same thing for that, but I would throw in the school into that, and also our biggest city park, and a lot of other activities going on with a lot of pedestrians. So that's our recommendation. Of course, we're happy to discuss and take comment.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to 500 West since I live over there. There's a lot of kids riding their bikes. They're crossing the streets. Now with the BMX track back up and running, kids are riding their bikes there all the time. There's a lot of concern about getting across 500 West and particularly to go to school. So I agree with what Michael said. I think if you're not there, you don't see it all the time. But when you're there, it's a lot of kids on their bikes.
There are a lot of kids, and they're little kids.
Right.
They're little kids on Strider bikes, and
they don't pay attention.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
And it seems like a nice, straight, easy stretch.
Mm-hmm.
But I find myself having to slow down more and more and more on that section of 500 West. And there are on, as far as 400 North goes, you mentioned the schools, but there are numerous churches on 400 North.
Mhm.
And,
All the churches are on 400 North, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, certainly by the time you get to the Williams Way intersection on 500, but that, I mean, we can even see it's mostly ag and creek and a significant hill. So I guess that is even kind of my question. Like, I think it makes sense between 500 or 400 and Williams.
And I guess I can address that also. A lot of the tourism traffic that he's talking about uses that to access the backcountry.
Yeah.
So we have,
Right.
you know, so it's more than just a lot. In fact, there's probably more tourism activity than there are people driving their cars, because most of the kids are on bikes, and that's a huge access point to get to the backcountry for those vehicles.
For sure. And I think most of them are not gonna be driving 20
No,
by the time they
do.
going up that hill.
Yeah.
Going down that hill.
That, if this is enacted, that will be the speed limit for all vehicles.
I will say, I do understand Caitlin's point, just for that small section of 500, right there where there's ag on either side. Like, obviously the slowdown needs to occur at a reasonable amount before where the dirt jumps are, because frankly, where I've seen the most interaction and where I've, seen the closest calls is right there. And there's a lot of pedestrian traffic around the Grand Center and the hospital that's worthwhile. But there is a set stretch where you're just like driving in kind of in front of a couple fields and like minimal driveways. So if we were going to tweak and tailor, that'd be a consideration in my mind.
It's kind of awkward though, Miles, if you go 25.
You go 20, 25. That's a fair point.
I was gonna bring that up.
Is kind of important also.
Well, it is, sorry.
There is a bike lane on that bridge as well.
Yeah.
That receives a
Yeah.
lot of traffic.
Well, the consistency is very important, actually. I think the going back and forth is just confusing. And I think for the police officers, especially, not confusing for them, but when you're writing a ticket and someone can show a judge, it goes back and forth within a block here, or something like that. It becomes, I think, a little bit harder to enforce as well.
That's
So-
absolutely fair.
And we've seen Eric down there a lot with the speed gun, because my understanding is there's been a lot of speeding on 500 West lately.
Yeah, we've had a lot of complaints in that area, and then the four-way stop at 4th North and 5th West.
Right.
We've been stepping up enforcement there, and that's why it makes sense from that point forward. You do come to a complete stop at a four-way stop, and then the speed limit changes right there.
Well, I guess I'm curious why you didn't, because there are a lot of homes that are frontages on, and a lot of businesses that are direct access from on that northern part of 500.
I think it's just the type of traffic once you get to that point. Our interpretation is that the traffic, well, mine anyways, is that the traffic is north of 400 North is more residential. The traffic from 400 North south is heavily influenced by tourism related traffic.
I think a lot of them are, yeah. Well, I mean, there's also no dedicated bike lane on that northern section of 500. So I don't know. Obviously, I am having a hard time with this specifically.
There's no bike lane there.
On that northern section, once you get through that
section of
four-way stop.
5th West.
On 5th, but yeah.
There's like a shoulder, but not like a designated.
Right.
Most people aren't riding, really, they're riding their bikes because that goes right out to the highway.
I would agree with you. I ride my bike down there a lot, and you probably do too. And it is like there is no bike lane, and people are constantly parked next to the curb.
Mm-hmm.
And
Kind of drives the bike.
and so you're constantly going like this, and it's sometimes it's hard to be seen, on bikes on that section of road, because it is fairly tight in there once people, and almost all those cars are parked along that road.
So are we now maybe talking about reducing that speed too? Is that another section of?
And I'll just say, every argument I made for reducing the speed, except for, I do think there's a little bit more different tourism traffic in the two different areas, but all the other arguments I made for reducing the speed from 4th North to Cane Creek are the same arguments somebody else could use for reducing it from 4th North to the highway. So we're definitely not going to resist if that is the direction council wants to go.
Yeah, I like that.
Any other questions?
No, I guess I'm throwing out. We want to suggest that as we,
So a motion to approve a the recommendation
adding.
and add five all the way, 500 west, the entire 500 west.
I also want to throw a shameless plug. I just think about this. The worst section of street in town, I think, is from Mill Creek to the bowling alley because it's so slow. What is that? Is that like 30 right there or something?
It's 25.
Oh my goodness. What's that?
25 and then 30.
Is it 25?
It's 25.
That's
And now we're gonna drop down to 20.
No,
No,
not in that.
that section
not-
is staying.
Not in.
that section will stay 25.
It just goes to the creek, to the bridge.
Just to that first bridge, and then
Yeah.
from there it's 25, 30.
Yeah,
the
that's
rest of the way
25.
out.
But it's brutal from like that bridge to, the cinema court, or just past that. It's like, holy cow. Yeah. Anyway.
And
But I'm not gonna touch.
And we probably should have highlighted the rest of Mill Creek actually as blue or green or whatever color that is. Cause that is over 20 miles an hour.
Yeah, 25 and then 30.
Yeah.
I also will say, I know we're ending it at the bridge, but it would make a lot more sense to me to end it at the stop. You know, like, I mean, we're talking about 30 yards of street. And if you, it just makes sense to me to end it at the stop sign.
That's that consistency piece that you were talking about.
Well, yeah, but we just thought we'd help people slow down before the stop sign, so.
That
Do,
makes sense.
and I'm sorry, we're complicating this because I really like the work that's gone into this. Just to emphasize Jason's point, one complaint that we hear so often, and it's something that I'm guilty of too, is that people cutting off, trying to avoid coming down Main Street 191 and cutting Fifth West. And I think lowering speed limits will make those residents very happy on that block that's currently blue, or those multiple blocks that are currently blue, and potentially deter people from trying to save time by cutting through residential area to avoid downtown.
That's Caitlin, not me.
What's that?
Oh, well, clearly pretty opposed to increasing.
We're
Our
adding
voice
that
on
to
that.
that.
But I think it should be consistent.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of traffic. I mean, I've biked out to Lions Park on 500 West today. That's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do
Just
think
make
the
it
parked
consistent
cars
either
on the
way.
shoulder make a strong point too, because the bicyclists coming in and out of traffic makes.
Yeah,
More.
and it's a section of road too where somebody on a bike hit a deer, or a deer hit a bike. It's a complicated transportation environment in there with cars parked in the street and deer running across in a residential area. So, yeah.
So we're making it consistent against what your wish.
Sorry.
well, I guess, I mean, I have to ask the question then of like with 400 East, then are we gonna revisit changing that to 20 when we get the road redesigned?
Yes, I firmly believe that that would be appropriate at the time we do the redesign.
And hopefully the redesign will look a lot like Cane Creek. Because there is an element of slowing, Cane Creek slows you down.
It does.
It does. And the traffic is definitely noticeable.
So we ready for a motion then?
Yep.
Want me to make one?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve, the recommended speed limits, that have been presented, while also including the north end of 500 West to also be reduced to 20 miles per hour.
What about Mill Creek from the stop sign?
And Mill Creek from the stop sign to the bridge, making that 25.
I can second that.
All right, motion by Jason, second by Colin. Any further discussion, Jason?
I want to get beat up. We're gonna get beat up.
That's
No, not for me.
Colin?
None.
Anybody else?
I would just like to echo, depending on how long that redesign is gonna take, I think that intersection at Dave's and right there needs some attention.
Right. Remember, there will be an ordinance with this in the ordinance.
Certainly.
Okay, anybody else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion
Kick is broken, Mike.
Motion passes 5-0. So there's your goals. We'll look
Yeah.
for that ordinance, next meeting?
It might not be next meeting. It might be the meeting after
In
that.
May.
Actually, we've got a really packed meeting the next meeting. We will, we'll talk more about that crosswalk because I know nobody liked those temporary bulb outs, but people don't like running them over either, and they could slow people down. So
I like them.
did you?
I did.
Okay, there's two of us.
I like them as well.
Thank you.
Even towing big trailers around them, I didn't hate them.
So we'll chat some more.
All right. So moving on,
Thanks, guys.
um.
Yeah.
We do not have a closed session, which is great. And we're gonna just move on to city manager updates.
Oh. Already. So we've got a couple of updates for you. First, I wanted to address the street lights really quick. I know there's been some comments about the shielding and taking some time getting the shielding and things like that. We're working with Rocky Mountain Power on this, and Rocky Mountain Power still owns most of these street lights and all the ones that are being shielded anyways. And we are definitely working towards trying to get them to get down here and put those shields in, and we are definitely working diligently. Alexi, as you saw tonight, is doing a lot of stuff, but this is one of the priorities is working on these street lights. And I just wanted to say that publicly that we are still pushing for that. We just have a third party that we are kind of at the will of.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. I have a couple other things. I want to thank the police and all first responders. The fire department left already, but our police department for all the work that they did this weekend, keeping everybody safe. I observed them several times. I know there was a lot of highway patrol in town as well, but I believe it was our department that organized everything that was happening and keeping everybody safe. And I think they do an exceptional job doing that. So thank you very much to you guys. We have an event coming up on May 8th from 5 to 8 p.m. at Swanee Park. It's the Arts and Ag Market. Remember we talked in strategic planning about staff tabling at these events. We are going to be tabling at this event, and we will be talking about water conservation and other items, but we will have a static display on water conservation, and we'll talk to anybody about anything related to city government. So we'd be happy to talk to anybody who comes up and wants to talk to us. I did want to mention that you've heard when we were going through the budget that we were doing an RFP for IT services, a request for proposal for IT services. And Summer was heading that up, and today that closed, and we got more than 20 responses, 21 responses, which is amazing. So we're going to be working. Summer's going to be pulling the major load here, but we're going to be looking at a lot of different IT providers to see if we can provide better services to staff, the council, and the community as well through our products. And that was it for me.
Okay, thank you. Council reports. We'll start with you, Caitlin.
Starting with me, okay. After our last meeting on the 15th, I had a Housing Task Force City Subcommittee meeting, where we mostly talked about the housing dashboard review. Got a little bit of an update about what the county subcommittee is doing. I think the task force just generally across all of these is trying really hard to bring us all together on city, county, community-wide housing conversations. So that was probably a general theme of that. Also on the 15th, I had a semi check-in with the mayor since we didn't have our check-in in March. I'm getting caught up on all the things. Obviously on the 17th, we had our joint meeting. And then the 22nd to the 24th, was at the midway conference, league conference with the mayor and Michael. And some of the sessions that I went to a session about homelessness response with the new director of OHS, Tyler Clancy. hearing about how homelessness fits into the strategic plan, housing strategic plan of the state, pushing a little advocacy for kind of rural homeless service concerns about how this new response is funneling more and more money up to urban and shelter cities and kind of potentially taking away some emergency response funds that we use down here. Attended a conversation about public-private housing projects, specifically focusing on one project that is in the Draper area. Just pretty interesting, I think. And then kind of finally, I also spoke on a panel about a kind of different version of public-private partnerships in Washington City and Ephraim. I think that there's a lot of, especially rural cities, but cities across the state that are coming up with really creative solutions to provide equity, use deed restrictions, and get some of that money back when the homes sell later. So it's really cool to see all of the innovation and the number of partners and agencies that are stepping in for that. And then today I went to the Utah Trails celebration with Governor Cox. That's it for me.
Thank you. Colin, you want to go?
Sure. 15th, I had the most recent wayfinding stakeholder group, and you all saw the great work that's been coming out of that process. I'm really excited about that. Also had a solid waste meeting that evening. The big subject of discussion at solid waste at all of our meetings now is, and this is something that I think a lot of us don't think about, but with all of the building that's happening in town, our construction and demolition landfill, Moab landfill, is filling up extremely fast. And it's without some really creative interventions, it is destined to be closing sooner than later. And so the solid waste district is working really hard to try to prolong that and extend the life of that. But certainly their operations are the wake of progress, is a phrase I heard. And on the 17th, we had our joint meeting. Not much to say because we weren't allowed to talk in that. No, that's not true. You chose it. The 20th. See, nobody's here for this, so you can just say anything.
5,000 people watching right now.
That's on YouTube. Yeah, 3 people.
3,000?
Yeah, and we love all 3 of you. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for being here with us to the end. On the 20th, I had a really wonderful meeting with Stewart Moab, just discussing, common goals between the city and Stewart Moab, and maybe some future projects that I would be bringing to all of your attention. But that was really fascinating. On the 21st, I met with the mayor and Miles. A robust discussion, and today on the 28th, I also participated in the in UDOT's Trails program in the completion of what's been referred to as the gap on Highway 128. And so, and as all of you know, that this is really near and dear to me, and I think that this is something I'm so proud of Utah for really investing in active transportation and just health and well-being of the Utah communities. So that's it for me.
Did you ride a bike?
I rode a bike. I had to chaperone Jason out there so he didn't get lost. So.
Trails were.
How you go next, Jason?
All right. I don't have a ton of stuff. I also attended the joint city county staff meeting. County council meeting. It was great. 420, I met with the mayor and about some things. And then on what did everybody else didn't talk about?
You forget?
What's that?
You forget?
It was 420.
We got to pull it back together here. I'm sorry. I started this.
Lizzie's still in the room.
Oh, you guys.
On 427, the mayor and I met with Natalie Randall and Lacey Shumway just to talk about tourism in the area, and they were kind of asking what they could do to help us, and we're kind of asking what kind of trying to get a pulse on tourism here, and kind of shared some things that they're doing in the future and stuff, which we got some puppets coming. So anyway, that was about what I got.
The vultures.
The vultures, puppet vultures are coming, and that's pretty neat things that they're talking about and stuff with that. We should be seeing later on this summer. And then today I also attended the the trail ribbon cutting start of construction ceremony, which was really good. I was really impressed with how many people were there and how many locals who came to it, and as well as the support we had from the state for that section of trail. So it was great. That's all I have.
Thanks, Miles.
Okay, I've got a bunch of things, so I will try to be brief. On the 15th, Moab Area Watershed Partnership. I feel like I get to be our doom and gloom guy because I'm on all the water boards. So doom and gloom. For the most part, it was just a bunch of alphabet soup organizations getting together and talking about this is a rough year and we have low snowpack and this is how we're going to deal with it. One of the things that we ran through a bunch of the legislature bills that had anything to do with water, and odds and ends, nothing really stood out for us in the city other than the Nature Conservancy will be hosting a stream management workshop. And I think there might be a lot of insight into how we can work on Mill Creek and Pat Creek as it goes through the city to maintain a healthy biological ecosystem with the creek, as well as make sure that it's prepared to withstand the flooding that may occur. But it was good to go to that board. It meets very infrequently, so it was nice to see everybody and kind of get to know things. They had some questions about the work that we were doing in Mill Creek, and they were all very supportive of what we were doing in order to deal with the creek as it flows through the city. Our city Moab Area Housing Task Force, Caitlin covered most of that. I think we're still looking forward to some kind of presentation here for council, and that's kind of the big one. PASU, nothing significant. For the most part, their units are full and or filling back up. They finished a bunch of work over at the Virginian and are, getting people back into the units they were working on. Some of the discussion with HASU is just how some of the new state legislature is affecting the self-help builds, and they're currently fairly insulated from it. But as time goes on, they're not going to have the land that's already purchased to provide these self-help builds, and it's going to make it more difficult to qualify for the state grant funding and everything, and the federal grant funding. GWISA, so this wasn't up for this meeting, but a variety of things going down at GWISA, but the things that the one that really applies to the city, which we've kind of spoken about to some degree already, is the potential for upgrading a contract for that cemetery well. And I know that's already on everyone's
Add in our upcoming meetings.
Yeah, I'm gonna meet with them tomorrow, but
excellent.
And then the agreement will follow.
Yeah. So you guys know what's going on for that. Essentially, they have had historical use of this well to provide water for the Moab Irrigation Company, and the contract is well and expired. So we need to, if we're going to continue providing that, we need to update the contract appropriately. Otherwise, from GWISA, they're finalizing some things that might affect people in the city, which is if you use the hydrants for any reason, they're updating their policy around how that is metered and how that is used. So if you're in the city here doing projects or whatever and you use the hydrants, know that there's an update with that. Ken's Lake is still technically on the rise, although everyone is well aware that that is mostly because things are melting too early and not because we're, doing well by any means. So GWISA was on the 16th. On the 17th joint meeting, I also was told to keep my trap shut.
You guys.
No, I didn't. It was
No, I told him.
it was really cool to see everybody come together. I was really glad to be a part of that. I was very pleased with how that went. meeting with Mayor and Colin. We discussed a variety of things on the 21st. And then last Wednesday, I had my first Wednesday at the Citizens Police Academy. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the program. That was kind of an intro day. So we got to meet a few of the sergeants and we got to kind of meet each other. I will say it is an amazingly diverse group of people who've chosen to be part of that. And I'm actually like quite excited about that. Everything from some high school students who are interested in criminal justice or law, to like people from all walks in the community. And so I'm really curious to see how that goes. And tomorrow I have my next session and we're doing traffic stops. So
We were told to be there at 6 so we could watch you get tased. Is that not?
Somebody did get paid.
I heard it was.
so yeah, James got fake tased.
Oh, 3 weeks.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, so you've got some.
Yeah.
Got tased first.
Yeah, well, everybody had to be prepared for the realities of the Citizens Academy. But I'm really looking forward to it. It seems like a great group of people and I'm excited to see more of that. And then of course today I also attended the trails and the Filling the Gap event. And it was good to see the governor down here talking about the state spending money on our community and how important the visitation to our community is to the entire state. And I like to hear it, like to see it. And that's it.
Hey,
Miles.
Miles or Caitlin, what are the waiting lists looking like currently for a lot of the HASU projects and other projects? I just think that's an important baseline as all these apartments are coming online. Let's see.
I know that for self-help, I believe both HASU and CR usually have about 200.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's kind of rolling. I think they usually go through probably at least 50 people that they call to get a group of like half a dozen.
Okay.
So it's partially people just not qualified at that time, but want to stay on the list or not interested in that particular build or.
Got it. And what about like the subsidized housing?
Well, yeah. So for most of the subsidized housing, they try to maintain lists of around 30 to 50 people.
Okay.
And that's like pretty much at any given time, even if they don't have vacancies. And that's just because of the difficulty of application and making sure they can find someone who can actually fill that unit. So to some degree, they maintain that list, so they're not hundreds and hundreds of people long, because they weed out people who would not qualify or otherwise, and then they take their strongest applicants and kind of hang on to them until something's available. So they fluctuate, and I did not take a note in the last meeting of it. Like they do report exactly how many people are on the waiting list for each different development, and I did not take that note. But I know that recently, like the Virginian had 3 vacancies because they were doing updates to them after long time turnovers, and those have now all been filled.
Okay.
So
Thank
they definitely stay full, and there are definitely still people looking for that type of housing.
Tony.
I was kind of out of commission last week. I was out of town for a while. I did attend the joint city county meeting on the 17th, and my meeting with the mayor kind of got hijacked somewhere. So that was really all I did.
Okay, thank you. For me, I attended Margaret Mackey's 100th birthday party at the Grand Center, and I have a certificate I'm going to bring to her this week to celebrate her 100th birthday. Great lit gal. She's lived here since 1952. She's from Netherlands. She was involved in World War II. Amazing stories. So anyway, that was great to be able to do that. And joint city county meeting where everybody was well behaved. It was really good to see that. And, great discussions on UMTRA, economic development, and water conservation. Attended the St. George, Utah League of Cities and Towns. I talked about the fire. I also attended 2 water workshops. One of them was on water policy, and Gene Shawcroft. He is the chairman of the negotiations for the Colorado River Compact. And then also Brian Steed, who's over the Great Salt Lake, but also involved in the water issues around the state and the Colorado River. And then today, even the governor said that there's just no water rights left in the state of Utah. And both of these, Gene and Shawcroft specifically said, just to be very clear, there's no more water rights available off the Colorado River in the state of Utah. And I'd love to share with you guys, and I will when we meet, what I learned about the Colorado River Compact that I never knew. I've talked to a couple of you guys about it, but it's pretty fascinating as to why we're in this position today. And I don't want to spend a lot of time going on that, but when we meet, I'll share that with you. Brian Steed brought up the same thing. There's, Utah gets 23% of half of the, or what's remaining from the lower basin states, and that's it. And we've used every drop. And so there just is no more, there's not going to be any more water coming out of Colorado River for Utah. And the governor said the same thing today. If you guys heard him speak, that's what he said. But anyway, fascinating. I mean, water is really fascinating. We're in a really interesting, volatile time with water right now in the state of Utah and the whole West. So it was really interesting. I also had a workshop with Kelsey Bird. You guys probably don't remember her. She was Mitt Romney's chief of staff. She's now over the Olympics. She's their government relations person. And so it was really, Caitlin, you got to meet with her. She's a really, really great gal. And she was given a presentation on 2034. And, my whole thing is Moab's going to be a part of this somehow. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows, so who was saying today about, I went to Switzerland and everybody in Switzerland knew Moab, and I think, people are going to come here from all over the world. They're going to want to come here and they're going to think it's just down the road. So we got to start working on how we can help with the visitation into the state and get those people down here during the Olympics. Let's see, met with Natalie Randall and Lacey Shumway with Jason, and we've got some secrets. Everybody will find out about it. But not tonight. Right. So anyway, pretty cool stuff coming to Moab in the next couple of months. And then, is that the Moab Tailing Steering Committee meeting today? Really good information from that. It looks like all the subplots and outside of the pile plots are going to be removed from the site by next summer. And then they're going to start working on the cover for the disposal cells out at Crescent Junction. So, hopefully if they're thinking by the end of 28, the site will probably be ready for closure. It's always been 29. I anticipate it'll probably be 29, but a lot of good stuff going out there. Those guys have been kind of a part of the Moab family for a long time. And then lastly, was at the Trail Gap event today. Had some really good conversations with the governor, mostly about energy. And I also had good conversation with his government affairs, Mike Maurer, and we'll be talking again soon, I'm sure. So that's it from me. Do we have anything else? I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Collins, second by Miles. All in favor, we're adjourned.
Aye.
Aye.